again, good evening all. Good evening, sir. So it's 6:30 p.m. Time to start our program. The Researchers Forum, Department of Commerce, University of Kerala organizes this two-day online orientation program on preparing and defending a research proposal. And today is the first day of the program. Dr. Gabriel Thattil, Professor and Head, Department of Commerce, and also the Doctoral Chairman of Commerce, University of Kerala, is handling the session. I invite Mr. Gobish G, research scholar, Department of Commerce, University of Kerala, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Reni. Good evening. My name is Gobish, research scholar, and I welcome all of you to the two-day online orientation program for preparing and defending research proposal organized by the Research Forum, Department of Commerce, University of Kerala. In the first session, we are going to discuss the purpose of research proposal, research, review and data support, statement of the problem, objective, etc. For the session, we have an eminent resource person here, Professor Gabriel Thattil, Head of the Department and Dean of Commerce, University of Kerala. He have more than 30-year experience in teaching and research activities. Under his guidance, he produced about 25 PhD degree, 48 MPhil and about 10 PDF degrees. He is the former General Secretary of Indian Accounting Association and current Chief Editor, Indian Journal of Accounting. He is the Director of IQOC Cell, University of Kerala. On behalf of the Research Forum, Department of Commerce, University of Kerala, I welcome you, sir, to take over the session, and I also welcome all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Audible.
The screen is also visible, right?
Yeah,
Is
yes,
this-
sir.
Yeah. So this is the title of what we are trying to look at. It's preparing and defending research proposals. So thanks for this opportunity, and I once again welcome all the aspiring researchers who have now registered for the current DC, and also all our students in the third semester who are preparing for their project work where we have research. So when we talk about research proposal, we are not just talking about PhD, we are talking about designing proposals for research work. And that research can be even an MCOM project or a BCom project, as well as a PhD work. So its length might vary, but essentially the concept of new knowledge is the same for all. So the outcome from this will be very evident when the candidates who have registered already are going to defend their research proposal in the upcoming DC, and also the MCOM students who will prepare a research proposal and submit it to their respective guides within maybe 2 weeks' time, because they have to, by March, start with their MCOM project. So this is the idea behind having this session on preparing research proposals, because normally students or researchers spend a lot of time in looking at the latter half of their research work, but they find themselves to be going wrong on several steps in identifying and preparing a good research proposal, because they are in a hurry to get through the DC or to get a degree, and they're not bothered about, or at times they're not bothered about, how this is actually going to help them in making a meaningful research work. So the proposal stage is what we are discussing here. Now this proposal is something which you are tentatively defending. It can have changes subsequently. You can subsequently change even maybe your title or your work part based on the feasibility or the viability. Subsequently, it can make. So we are discussing something which is called a proposal. So how to prepare this proposal and how to defend this proposal is what we are currently discussing. So this will be the coverage, what we are trying to discuss today. The purpose of the proposal. It's not the purpose of the research. The first one is the purpose of the proposal. Why are you preparing a proposal? Second point would be, what exactly is a good proposal? The third issue is purpose of the research. So there is a difference between what we said first and what we are now saying. It's the purpose of research. What is the objective behind your doing this research? What is the statement of the problem that you have? And what are the research objectives which you have actually formulated for this particular work in this idea stage. The rest of it you will see in part 2, which is tomorrow. So this is what we plan to cover today. Now, before we start with this, let us try and find some answers to questions like this. What are you aspiring for? As I said, we have two types of participants for this program. One, a group of researchers or a group of scholars who are putting and defending a proposal for PhD, and a group of third semester MCOM students who would write a proposal for an MCOM project work. So what are you aspiring for? For some, it will be a research degree. They want to have a PhD. And for the S3 students, they are aspiring for a master's degree. So in this, both the PhD as well as the master's degree, they are keeping a research process in place. When you're doing a master's project also, you're working on a brief proposal. It might not be a lengthy one as a PhD one, but there is an issue, there is a problem. They have some objectives, they work with a methodology, and they come out with some findings. Same with the PhD. So a research degree, keeping a research process in place. But then is this research? But then what is this research actually? There's a small mistake. What is this research? So this research that we are talking about has got these these 3 dimensions. Number 1, you are creating new knowledge. So this does not mean that you are going to become a major inventor, or you're going to have a major patent in your name and all. It can be even small knowledge, from small knowledge to great knowledge. It can be something which is related to a new process. It can be a new application. It can be a new product. It can be a new service. So some new knowledge. It can be the finding out the truth about something. You want to know what actually is the truth behind something which is happening. You know that the organization has got drop in sales. You have somewhere a micro enterprises which is facing a labor problem. You find a lot of employees being retrenched somewhere. You find a lot of work pressure in some organizations. You want to know what is the truth behind this. So it can be in that form. Or the third form, it can be moving from the known to the unknown. So all this is research. The 3 dimensions of research. You create new knowledge, or you're finding out the truth, or you're moving from the known to the unknown. So something is known, something is said, something is established. From that, taking cue from that, you would like to create, you would like to explore something which is yet to be unknown. So if you look at this, you will understand the unknown, the truth, the new knowledge. In all the 3, there is something new. So we're looking for something new. And this is a big issue which you will face when you're in the doctoral committee. When you present your MCOM project in a Viva, the question will keep coming up. What is new in this? What is the new knowledge that you have created? What was the truth which was not known that you have made known? On these dimensions, we are trying to work with a proposal. So it can be very simple and small, but there must be an element of novelty, an element of it being new. Now, look at this process. We are trying to look at the process. The starting point is the problem. Now, when you defend a proposal, when you start working with an MCOM project or in any research work, it always has started with a problem. It is even when you start looking at inventions, discoveries, new applications, new products, new value additions which are coming up, new novels, new cinemas, new movies, new work of art. It starts from a problem backdrop. So somewhere there is an issue. And based on that issue, you have some research questions before you. And keeping the problem, your problem statement and the research questions, you have some research objectives. These objectives can be a primary objective and the secondary objective along with that. Now, with this problem and these objectives, you do some basic review. That means you might know some basic theories related to that. You might be talking about somebody who said something about that, some publications related to that, and then you establish a gap, the gap between what is known and what is that which is not known. And when you do this in depth, you are likely to have a hypothesis. Now, I'm not talking about getting all these in the proposal, but I'm talking about the entire process. So I say, for example, I find that there is a huge, I'm talking about one, I'm taking one problem each in HR, in finance, and in marketing. Suppose in HR, I'm finding a huge turnover ratio or an attrition rate in one industry. So I'm seeing this as a problem. Now, when I'm saying it's a problem, remember we have an issue where several candidates actually talk about a problem, but it is not substantiated with solid evidence on how it is a problem. We just say that it's a problem. So when I say attrition rate is very high in a particular industry or in a particular firm, I'm supporting it by data. I'm saying something like, for example, it was 20% in 3 years back, then it went to 25%, then it went to 40%. These facts with the reference I'm saying, and that is going to be a problem. So I'm spelling out a problem. And then perhaps the question will be, what is the reason for this attrition rate? Or what is the reason for this many number of employees leaving the organization? Now, my objective in that case will be to find out what actually causes attrition and what are the strategies to retain them, the employees. So primary and secondary. Now, when I'm talking about review of literature, I have to look into the theories which are associated with human power turnover or labor turnover. So there would be some theories, there would be some concepts based on that. Now, when I look into that, I find that somebody has studied something relating to this earlier, whereas I am looking at something into one particular factor. So there I identify a gap, and I have a tentative feeling that this attrition perhaps is because of this factor. This is something which is, this thread of linkage is something which you see in a problem like this. Then suppose you talk about finance, we might perhaps see a problem of a sudden decline in dividend of a firm, or we might sometimes see problems where, in spite of there being dividend, value of firm is not going up in one firm, in one industry. So I try to relate this to a problem which the investors are facing. So I spell it out based on concrete facts and evidence relating to that. And I try to put out a question, why this firm, in spite of having dividend, is not able to enhance its value of the firm. I have my objective to study the relationship between dividend and value of the firm. Primary objective. I might have secondary objective relating it to whether it is associated with the net profit or whether it is associated with the performance of the management and things like that. I have my review of literature, which will be talking about all the dividend theories, relevance and irrelevance. I'll put my gap as what was studied earlier and what I would like to study, which is unknown in the context. And I might have a hypothesis over there. So this is the basic first steps which you're trying to highlight in your proposal. Then you again talk about the data. What type of data you are going to use? Are you going to use primary or are you going to use secondary? What will be your sample? This is a tentative kind of a thing. Subsequently, you might feel that more than primary, secondary is available, or where secondary is inadequate, you're going to have more collection. That cannot. This is in the proposal stage. Now, you're again talking about, do you have an idea regarding who are going to be your sample respondents and for what period you're going to collect data? What collection methods you're going to adopt? How are you going to do your analysis? Which tools? And how are you going to decide the appropriate thing? How are you going to draw inferences and findings? This is not the inferences and findings which you have drawn. You have not at all started your work. This is just the proposal. And in this, you will be saying that I'll be testing like this. I'll be addressing the objectives and research questions in this form, and I'll be finally reporting with a tentative form. All this will be in a very raw stage when you are in a proposal. Now, although this has got two stages, this stage, the first stage, stands out to be more crucial because you're in a very raw, in a very crude form initially. So you must be very clear about what the problem is, what are your research questions, how are you going to frame your objectives, and what is the current available literature relating to that. Can be a few studies or maybe a few theoretical constructs or models which does exist on that part. Then you can also suggest certain things on this. This type of data will be used, this sample will be used, this collection method will be used, this is how I'm going to analyze, and finally I'll report. Subsequently, when you start off with the work, wherever you feel the same need to be modified with convincing reasons for the same, you are free to do that. So this is the process. However, whatever be the type of research that you do, essentially this process will be common in all the approaches that you actually adopt. Now, what is this proposal? Now we are coming back to the proposal. Now, in this proposal, actually, what are you doing? You're doing something which is very simple. You're just saying, what is your plan of work? What is that you are trying to find out? And how do you plan to find it out? So you're just defending these two questions. I would like to find out this, and my plan is to work it out in this form. I have identified a very significant or relevant problem. Based on that, I have understood that this problem is in fact a problem in terms of the supportive evidence which exists. And based on that, I plan to work in this form in order to reach at certain finite conclusions. So it's a plan of action. It's a plan of action to work on an issue of relevance. So you are looking at something which is relevant and you are trying to work on that. Now, this being said, you need to understand the domain, the discipline in which you actually operate. Say, for instance, I might know that a very relevant problem is there, maybe in terms of health science, but I'm not competent to do my research on that because I don't have the theoretical backing for the same. Or I might know that there is a very strong urge for maybe a dam or a road somewhere, but that comes under the domain of engineering, and I'm not competent to do work on that. So when you say that you pick up a problem, that problem must be a problem which stands in your domain and the theories of which are perhaps in your domain. So you have a plan of action to work on an issue of relevance, and that issue must be from the context in which we come. That's why we talk about finance, accounting, banking, HR, capital market, portfolio management, marketing, so on and so forth. Because some of those theories are theories which are there in us, and we can perhaps understand something which is there outside in the environment and relate to that. So what is a research or a project proposal? I'm saying research or project proposal, research for those who are planning to do PhD and project for those who are in NCOM. It's just a plan. It's a plan. It's a plan which you would like to pursue over a period of time, where you are saying that I have found that there is a problem here and I'm going to work on this problem and give something new. So it is an issue of relevance plus a passion to work on the same. This will contribute to an idea. So the proposal is actually your idea. The proposal that you're putting forward, you're trying to defend before a committee or before anybody in a research work is your idea. Is your idea about an existing problem or an issue and how you would throw light on that problem and issue and perhaps bring out some ways to resolve it, or if not resolve, at least to mitigate the same. So it should be an issue of relevance, and you should have a passion to work on the same. Now the question would come, why is this passion? This passion to work on the same is important to see that your idea actually becomes more robust, because you can work on something in which you do not have a passion. I said you look at the functional areas in commerce or management. We have finance, we have HR, we have marketing, we have banking. But you look at your passion, your interest, you might not see it to be equally gelling in all these disciplines. So some might be passionate in accounting and finance. Some might be passionate in capital market operations. Some might be passionate in banking and non-performing assets and things like that. Some might be passionate in advertising and sales promotion and marketing. So where is your passion? That is, and where you have your basics strong, it is there that you give birth to an idea. And it is this idea of yours that actually comes out in the form of a proposal. So exactly what is this proposal? Proposal is your idea on a problem that you have identified, and how are you going to work with a plan on finding out why this problem is existing and how perhaps we can address this particular problem. So the key words there in your research proposal is the problem which you have identified, your plan to work on that problem. So accordingly, you have your objectives, you have your plan of action in terms of the tools and data and so on and so forth. Is this clear so far? Am I audible? And because I'm sitting on the other end. Can you all?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm proceeding with this. Anything anybody wants to, what do you call, clarify, suggest at this stage? Okay. So I'll proceed. Now, again, the proposal. You're all preparing a proposal. As I said, you have already prepared a proposal and uploaded in the research portal, the researchers. But that's only a raw thing. If you want, you can again change that in the light of what we are now discussing and represent your modified proposal on 22nd and 23rd. So also research project preparing students of MCOM S3, you have to look at this proposal in this form. You're giving a brief description of your plan of action or the suggested plan of action. That is what we're calling an idea. And to arrive at this new knowledge or learning, so you're talking about something new. It can be very, it need not be something which is going to be dramatically changing the entire globe around you, but it can be it can relate to something new relating to a micro enterprise. It can be something relating new to perhaps even street vendors. It can be something relating to certain processes in production, marketing, or advertising. It can be even something new in terms of a policy which might be relevant for a panchayat. It can be something really new for family business. So something new, a brief description of a plan of action that you have to create something new. And you have a description of that. So that description perhaps can be 4, 5, 6 pages, where you're saying that, okay, this is my problem. Based on this problem, I work with these objectives, and I would like to find out this. So essentially, you are giving light to just 2 things. What is that you wanted to find out, which is your problem, and how do you plan to do it? I'm planning to do it by this data, by this sample, by this method, using these variables, so on and so forth. So try to apply your mind on that and focus on that, and you can easily design your proposal based on these simple factors. Now, do we always write this proposal? The other word that we're using for this proposal is my idea statement. Do you write this proposal before launch of this research or the project? For PhD, yes, it's mandatory. You have to upload your proposal, and only then you get and that proposal must get cleared from the doctoral committee, and only then you start with the research. For MCOM or it's not always necessary, but it will be good if each student can give a brief proposal of their plan, the work plan that they have before their supervising teacher. So that's why we are suggesting that all students in S3, maybe in 2 weeks' time, you'll be given 2 weeks' time that we put up on a notice board. You will also prepare a proposal on something which you would like to work on, which is your choice, and you will decide how you're going to go about on that. Now, what is the purpose of the proposal? The purpose of the proposal, I didn't say purpose of the research. Purpose of the proposal is to convince the DC. DC stands for the doctoral committee, or for MCOM project, convince your supervising teacher that you have a researchable idea. You have a good idea on a problem which is existing, on a problem which is relevant, on a problem which is live, on a problem which is a reality. The context in which it becomes a reality, or the context in which it is live, can be a context for the entire country. So for example, suppose I'm talking about digitization of transactions and its impact on small and micro enterprises. It can have its impact across the country. I can also talk about, as I said, the problem of some vendors in one village. Now my context is very simple, but the problem is, I feel that it is live. I feel that it is genuine. It is something on which, if we have concrete data, it can perhaps lead to a resolution. So you have a researchable idea with you, and that comes from a context. The context, as I said, can be nation, can be industry, can be state, can be district, village, panchayat, MSME, single unit. It can be family business. Wherever you see the problem, it can be all financial institutions. It can be in one financial service. It can be marketing of one product. It can be of one class of products. It can be only with FMCG. So you have a researchable idea. So you're convincing the doctoral committee, the researchers will be doing that on 22nd, where they say that they have a very wonderful researchable idea with you. And your plan is to work on something relevant in your domain. Now, I'm telling you this because when you put across an idea to work on something, there could always be a question on what is your expertise to work on this? What is your competence to work on this? That's what I said earlier. There could be a very suppose you talk about the COVID pandemic. There are issues relating to this pandemic in agriculture, basically in health, in industry, in economics, in social life, in the governance. All these have got its impact, but the nature of the problem is different. The health people will be looking at the virus, how the virus is spreading, how it is mutating, what are the causes, what is its impact on the heart, impact on the blood, so on and so forth, which a commerce person cannot study. The impact on social life, as studied by somebody in sociology, cannot be studied by something in commerce because we do not know the psycho or the psychological, social aspects or the theories relating to that. But if you talk about the impact on employment or the impact on one particular industry, let us say transportation, or let us say hotels, or let us say tourism in one particular industry, this perhaps is something which a person in commerce can study. So your plan to do something relevant in your domain. Why they are again telling you this? Because there are some people who talk about some theories. They take a different domain, altogether different from the domain in which they are, and they're not quite sure about the associated theories relating to that. There's always a question, what is the basic? Because whenever you put across a proposal, your title to the problem will have number of issues which have got theoretical basics associated with it. If somebody wants to study motivation in one industry, the basic theories are the theories related to motivation. Somebody wants to study quality of work life in some place or work life balance in some place. There is a theoretical concept on quality of work life or work life balance, as the case may be. Somebody wants to study, as I said, capital market operations while looking at portfolio management. There are basic theories relating to portfolio management which you cannot ignore. So same thing with customization, advertisement. So there are basic theories which are getting associated with that, which we need to be having a good command over. So you have to plan your work on something which is relevant in the domain, and you must have, it's not that you cannot go multidisciplinary, you can, but you need to have the theoretical concepts, definitions clear with you. And this is, and you're convincing that DC again, that this is how I will work. So you're telling them three things. You're defending your proposal in terms of three things. Number one, you're saying that I have a researchable idea. I have a plan to work. Now that plan initially might look like this. Subsequently, it might change. But initially, I have a plan. That is what we're talking about in methodology. My plan is I will contact the sample in this form. I will take primary data in this form. I will take secondary data in this form. And I will analyze in this form. And this is how I will work. So these three things put together is actually making the purpose of your proposal. So the purpose of the proposal is to convince. And convincing on what? Your idea is good. You have a plan of work and you're able to convey with conviction the mode in which you will work. So this is the purpose of your proposal. Purpose of your proposal, not the purpose of your research. Now from this, we move into what is this again proposal. As I said, it's a plan of action to work on an issue of relevance. Oh, sorry, this is something which you already covered. So we come back to this. Yeah, this is already there. So why are we actually doing this? This is something which is important for us in terms of understanding. Normally, why are we doing this? Because we just want to meet some compulsory requirements. For MCOM, you need to have a project work. you need to submit a report. So for that, I'm just doing it for that. So just to do it, that's all. Or I'm doing it to meet some mark requirements. There are 4 credits for it or 6 credits for it, and there are this many marks assigned for the project. So I'm doing it just for the sake of that. Contrary to this, you can definitely get your marks. You can definitely work for your degree. There's nothing wrong in that. But along with that, you need to look at what is given here in green. You need to learn something or have some focused understanding. You need to find something new in terms of knowledge. So we are trying to move into knowledge. We are not just playing with data, or we are not just playing with information or playing with some tools. We are trying to come out with some inferences. We are trying to come out with some conclusions. We are trying to interpret certain facts and say that, okay, this is a simple problem that I had in the beginning, and it was relevant, and now I know why this problem is as such prevailing, and I'm suggesting certain ways to address it. So look at the last part. We are trying to resolve. If not resolve, we are at least mitigating a problem through some suggested means. Perhaps you cannot implement that, but you can give information or you can support a policy on how this can be addressed in a given context. So this is why we are actually doing research. We are not doing research just for the degree or just to meet the mark requirement, but we want to actually identify a problem and address that problem and resolve or mitigate that through some suggested means. So your end and beginning is the problem. You have started with a problem, then you start your work, your proposal goes on, and finally your end product will be shedding some light on this various dimensions of the problem and the suggested ways to deal with the same. Look at the linkage. You have a raw idea. I'm talking about the proposal. We are only discussing the proposal. You have a raw idea. You don't have a finite idea, or you don't have a final idea, but you have a raw idea. You have a plan of action. That is, if this is the problem, this will be my objective, and with this, I will actually work in this form, and I will try to find out this. That is my proposal, and you are working out that proposal. You are quite confident that you will be competent enough, capable enough to work on that proposal. So that is the key. Your plan of action to work on a proposal. Now, as I said, the beginning and the end, the core of this, or the entire crux of the entire proposal is, so what exactly is the problem? So people keep saying that we have seen a number of proposals being defended. So a lot of people are leaving that company. So we keep asking, what is your evidence for that? Or there is big work-life balance is a big issue in the IT sector. Or there is a lot of stress among employees. It may be true or may not be true, but you cannot just make sweeping assumptions and statements saying that it's a problem. And you have to find out what exactly is the issue. We also talk about general titles. I'm sure many of you would be having that title. Problems and prospects in that industry. Opportunities and challenges in this industry. Problems and prospects of food processing sector. Problems and prospects of the dairy farming. So here there is some understanding at the beginning that there do exist some key issues, and there are some key opportunities and challenges which you need to address. So at the beginning, when you're putting up a title, it has got something to do with what you have identified. And that has to be very clear at the proposal stage, that I have identified something which requires in-depth study, and I would like to do a detailed study on this. Subsequently, my plan might change based on certain factors through which I go deep into the concept. Now, birth of an idea. What are the sources of these ideas? The sources of these ideas are actually the problems which are there outside. These problems are encountered by somebody somewhere. It can be maybe by a vendor, maybe by a firm, maybe by an industry, maybe by the society, maybe by certain service providers. So some realities in business, which is actually existing in the environment. Certain realities in the business, in the industrial environment, certain observations, certain experiences. You can get it through interaction with experts, or you can get it from problem facers. So even before you write a proposal, you might have had some basic interaction with some experts or you could have had some basic understanding from the realities which have been published. If you look at the media, there are a number of challenges which are actually brought out in the different challenges, right, in the different sectors as faced by different industries. You look at Business Line, you look at Economic Times, or you look at Financial Express. They're talking about different issues which are faced at different points of time through digitization, through the micro small enterprises, through inability to convert various schemes into action, through the change which are taking place in certain regional aspects. Some state is not very good in taking advantage of certain infrastructure development. Numerous things coming up in the budget which is talking about opportunities for business. So you get all these things from the business environment, from observations and experiences which are actually reported. And you can also get it from interaction with experts and problem facers. So the key to this idea is understanding real life situations. You look at the best proposals given for any form of research. The basic element in that, or the key element in that, is their competence or their capability to understand real life situations. So the title of what they are saying or the problem that they have identified has got something to do which is actually live in a context. As I've been repeatedly saying, that context can be maybe a group of people, maybe a small number of firms, or maybe an industry in total, or maybe the nation as a whole. So we need to understand real life situation. The more you understand real life situation, the more you get empowered in terms of your understanding of what should be done. Because what we have with you is only your theories. You have already finished your master's in commerce, or you're in the last semester of your master's in commerce, and you have your theories with you. Now, how does this theory work in a context? As I said earlier, you have studied, maybe in HR, talks about motivation, starting from Maslow's, Herzberg, McGregor's theory. Now, how does this actually work in a context, and does it actually resolve a real life situation, is what is actually going into research. Similarly, when you talk about portfolio management, when you talk about creating a portfolio, when you talk about risk aversion, when you talk about financial literacy, when you talk about financial inclusion, when you talk about digitization and its experience on the grassroots level, vendors, it has got something to do with a theoretical concept and something to do with what is happening outside. So your understanding of what is happening outside is the birth of an idea. And you're relating that to what actually is studied by you somewhere in your master's or somewhere in your theoretical backing. That is how an idea actually comes. So the source of an idea is actually reality. And a research proposal is blending between the idea that you have got from reality and the associated theory. Suppose I'll just give a very simple example. You study that there is a linkage between price and demand. Higher the price, lower the demand. So this is a common theory, inverse relationship. But you find a product around you where this relationship does not work and it is not fully studied. There is a need for in-depth analysis to find why this is happening. Or you find that there is a very strong relationship between family business management rates, and you see in your town or village a family business which is run maybe similar or different from this theory, and you have to link with realities. So you say that this theory and these situations need further analysis to throw some light on that. And you can also talk about ways and means through which you can strengthen the processes which are happening there for value addition or for wealth creation and so on and so forth. So understanding reality is actually the birth of an idea. That is why we are saying you need to have association with your, you need to actually be associated with your internship, with your pre-learning from the industry or the environment, because it's from there that you actually get the birth of an idea. So this is how the idea actually gels into your research work. Now look at this again, birth of an idea, very, very important. The three facets that you see. Number one is the environment. So in the environment, what happens? There are observations. I see certain things happening before me, maybe in an industry, maybe among retailers, maybe among consumers, maybe among bankers, maybe among financiers, maybe in terms of accounting statements that are prepared, maybe in terms of interpretation that is happening. So I'm observing certain thing around me. I also have certain experiences where I see that certain things relating to business, trade, commerce, industry are happening in a format which is either similar or maybe in some form different from what is actually theoretically built up. I see some problems. Some people not able to access some of the services. Some people actually struggling with their business in terms of certain functional areas like production, like cost of production, or non-availability of raw material, or inability to market, or inability to export, or the huge competition that they face. I see some problems that they face. And I know that the problems are evident. But the problems that I'm saying is not my just feeling or just a mere assumption that I have. I have concrete facts to show that. The other day we were discussing problems with public sector enterprises in the state. And suddenly somebody says that many of the public enterprises are running at a loss. Maybe. But you cannot make a problem statement like that. You have to talk about how many public sector enterprises are there, out of which how many are running at the loss. How many are running at how many of them have actually become sick? How many of them have got 50% of their capital eroded? This is not something which comes after you start your research. It is something on which data is already available. What part of the problem is actually there because you are the problem is, what part of that problem is actually revealed through certain factors? There will be some secondary data which is talking about problems. The other day we were discussing tourism. Somebody says there is a big decline after COVID in tourist arrivals. Do you have the data for that? What is the percentage of decline? What are the attributed reasons as has been already reported? So these are the problems which are actually given, the problems which are actually established, and that is taken up for your study. Again, you can have some success factors, known success factors. Some enterprises have succeeded because of X, Y, Z reason as reported. Or some organizations have failed because of A, B, C reasons. So this is the birth of an idea. I keep my ears and eyes open to what happens in the business environment through observations, through experiences, through problems, through success failures factor. Now I don't stop there. I come to the second dimension. I come to the second screen. I look at the conceptual knowledge and theories, which are related, maybe in theories in finance, HR, marketing, operations. It's not just in finance. In finance itself, suppose your problem is relating to dividend. You have the dividend policy theory. Suppose your problem is related to capital structure. You have the capital structure theory. Suppose your problem is related to the market hypothesis, efficient market hypothesis, technical analysis, fundamental analysis. So you have the theories basically associated with that. Suppose your problem is related to stock market trends and price movements. There are a lot of theories relating to that. So also in HR, if your problem is related to performance appraisal, you have concrete theories on performance appraisal, 360-degree appraisal, things like that. If your problem or issue is relating to total quality management, you have fundamental theoretical concepts on TQM. So also on quality of work life, motivation, stress, threshold, job description. So whatever be your capturing issue, there is a conceptual part of it which you need to have command over. So suppose your issue is in advertising, product customization, value addition. There are theories basically associated with that. So one side you have from your environment, you have picked up an issue, you have looked into the conceptual knowledge which is associated with that, and now you are linking the two, here 1 and 2, linking known to the realities or new knowledge. So your learnings and resolutions, you are blending. That means I have identified a problem relating to, say, labor attrition or relating to motivation. I have looked into the theories relating to that in the domain 2, and I'm blending between the two and trying to find out how this theoretical concept can be conceptually extended in order to resolve or mitigate a problem in a given context. So this is actually what we call the birth of an idea. So when this is done, you'll understand that context is demanding certain changes in the way a theory is applied, in the way in which this is happening even in accounting. So if suppose somebody wants to study valuation of goodwill, there are theoretical ways in which you learn that it is valued in this form. But then you look at the industry, you find out problems, and then how it is actually valid will come out in the form of a blending. So this is how an idea is actually born, or this is how an idea actually is taken forward when you're looking into a good research proposal. So exactly what you're trying to talk about, you're trying to talk about a problem which is live, which is real, which is true, which is evidence, which is convincing, and you're trying to relate its theories, its definitions and concepts. You're blending the two and you're saying that I'll work on this and I'll try and find out how this can perhaps be given a better way of resolving it. So that's your proposal. Now, again, birth of your idea, you know your idea. How do you know the environment? It comes from, I said, it comes from the media, it comes from newspapers, it comes from business dailies, it comes from business channels. It is, you look at any business newspaper or business daily, every day it talks about a researchable issue. Everything might not deal with you, but it is a source which talks about that. And some of which are regional, some of which are only to one sector, some of which are only to one industry. So this is actually the base. I know that from the context. Then I have also taken up my internship. I do a number of case studies. I might have gone for industrial visits. I might have had some invited talks. All these are actually sources that will give birth to your business idea. So we have to see that it happens in that form. So that is the reason why we give a lot of exposure programs to students, maybe in terms of invited talk, maybe in terms of group discussion, maybe in terms of budget analysis. So they are supposed to try and interact and carry this forward with some of these experts, along with the reading that comes from the media. So you know your environment, and that is very important in order to identify a researchable issue which will require a detailed analysis. Again, birth of our second part, conceptual knowledge, how does it come from? Published theories and literature. Very often we have issues in the doctoral committee as well as in the Viva where master students defend their project, where certain terms which they themselves have been using are not properly substantiated. That means the conceptual part is not very clear to you. We had a problem, I'll just give some examples. Somebody talks about problems faced by tourists. And again, an expert is asking a question, how do you define a tourist? Now, the World Tourism Organization has a clear, concrete definition on the concept of a tourist. So we cannot just say that, okay, somebody who comes and goes is a tourist. There's a definition for that. Somebody says, I want to study work-life balance in that industry. So then immediately a question will come, what is this work-life balance? Who talked about this for the first time? So keep in mind, all the concepts that you're talking about in your proposal has a very strong theoretical backing, which must be clear to you. We have problems with people say that there is a lot of stress in the IT industry, I want to study. So the problem, how do you know that there is stress in the IT industry? And second, what are the theories of stress? How will you measure stress? So there are basic fundamentals associated with that. Again, somebody says that full disclosure as an accounting standard does not happen in financial statements or is not there in certain financial statements, which is the cause for fraud in the industry. Now the problem comes, what is full disclosure? What are the accounting standards which talk about full disclosure? Or you say that the marketing of products is not possible, is not happening because of inadequate customization provisions. So what do you mean by product customization? How do you distinguish between market and marketing? So there are basic theoretical constructs. An understanding of that only will support this. Without, suppose you talk about, I want to study the relationship between non-performing assets and profitability of banks. Again, the question will come, what do you mean by a non-performing asset? It has got doubtful, standard, substandard division. So what do you mean by that? Somebody wants to study liquidity concerns. So how do you define liquidity? What are the liquidity benchmarks? So you are trying to find out something new. But that new cannot come from vacuum. It can come only after a firm understanding of what is existing. So there are lots and lots of things which are already existing, which must give a solid base for what you would like to probe further. So all that you have studied, this is all the theories are actually things which you have studied over your semester. But unfortunately, there are some people who want to venture into some other area where they'll find that they have not actually studied these basics in any of the semesters through which they have gone through. Even that is fine. Perhaps you have its theoretical, in-depth understanding, even without going into the semester. But otherwise, you will stand shallow in terms of understanding how these things have a theoretical backing. So you are always not just talking about a problem as a silo. You're talking about your problem in a context, and you're talking about what are the associated theoretical concepts and definitions and literature relating to that. And then you are saying that I will try and find out certain things which might even be against perhaps the theory that has been established. So that is your subsequent plan of action, which you would like to establish over a period of time. So what makes the proposal good? The key, because you want to defend something which is good. So that is why we are saying your initial screening is only a very raw form in which you throw an idea. I'm sorry, it can be refined in different forms. So you are establishing the validity of the idea that has been proposed. And you are saying it's valid because of these reasons. Number one reason is that what I'm doing is relevant to the society or the industry. It is going to talk about something new. It is going to resolve an issue. It is going to create value. So when I'm establishing all these things, or when I'm spelling out these factors, there what is happening is I'm establishing validity. So at the end, what is there? You have beneficiaries and benefits. Suppose I'm saying that we are trying to ensure access to formal credit to certain segments in the society who are doing business in the informal sector. So for example, street vendors or fisher folk. They are in the informal sector. They might not have an exact place of business, but they need credit. I'm talking about a model through which these segments in the society who are in the informal sector can get access. But if they need to get access, the issues in the formal credit system is they need to have KYC and all that. So is there a proposition through which this can be ensured? Also, when we are talking about the capital market operation, there is a huge micro, small, medium enterprise for which subsequently, initially though not present, subsequently a separate platform was created. How much of this capital market platform is actually being used by the micro enterprise? And what could be the reasons why some of these micro enterprises are not able to move into that? So such issues. So when I do that, I'm talking about when I finish this work, when I get my proposal executed, I have with me a finite set of beneficiaries and a very clearly spelled out set of benefits. It can be small. It can be benefiting even one small enterprise. I can talk about certain turnaround strategies through which maybe even one small loss-making unit can be converted into a profit-making unit under a given set of conditions. So I'm throwing some light on that. So all this is actually indicating validity. If I'm talking about a culture of enhancing penetration into the insurance sector, I'm talking about how this is going to be valid for the entire nation, how this is going to address risk factors, how this is going to support economic development. When I'm talking about enhancing better use of the digital format for payment, I'm talking about greater levels of accountability. I'm talking about how this is going to benefit a segment and how this is going to create a transformation. So in all these cases, you look at your proposal and try to find out how is it valid, who will benefit, what will be the benefits, and what is the new learning that is coming out from there. What exactly was the problem? How, when I address that problem, a new set of beneficiaries and a new set of benefits would emerge. That is how you make your proposal good. So when that is seen, understand that this is not just an exercise for your PhD. This is not just an exercise for MCOM S3. If an S3 student can give a proposal to this kind to different agencies, the State Planning Board, the Niti Aayog, they are all asking for proposals on understanding certain live issues around them. Even the state government is asking for proposals. You can give a proposal and say that I will do a good research on this and help you in trying to resolve this problem. The proposal will attract funding. We know about in early 96, 97, I still keep giving that example of how a management MBA student who was learning layout theories, layout theories of keeping different things in its right place and giving a work pattern of how things should be actually placed in different segments. At that point of time, when he was learning layout theory, he observed something happening in the campus opposite to their educational institution campus. There was an industry there opposite to their campus. And every morning and evening, there was a lot of congestion in parking, traffic, cars coming in, cars going out, two-wheelers. There was a long queue, pending vehicles, waiting to enter, waiting to exit. At that point of time in their classroom, they were discussing layout theory. So suddenly he thought, why not look into this layout theory and formulate and draft a good parking system for that organization? He used his theoretical knowledge on layout theory and created a model parking system for an organization. Now, this man did not change the entire world. He changed only one organization in terms of a parking model in one particular unit. But he said very clearly that the benefit will be to this institute. They will have a good parking system. The waiting time will come down. Loss of fuel and energy, unnecessarily resource loss will come down, and you will work on it. This project was purchased by that company by paying a price to the person who gave the proposal. So what I'm trying to talk about is valid proposals are not just for your PhDs. If you can give valued proposals, there are a number of agencies which keep asking for the same. But you should be able to spell out how your idea is valid, in which context it is valid, and how you're going to find a beneficiary for it. This is what your good proposal does. Let us come to the types of proposals. You have academic proposals, like you do for your MCOM, MBA, PhD. You have proposals, you have purpose-based, directed by the funding agency. Say, for example, as I said, Niti Aayog wants us to do a research for one purpose, or SEBI wants us to do a research on finding out DMAT account holders' perception in one state. So the purpose is very made clear by the funding agency. Or you have some agencies like Kerala Startup Mission, KDIS, IIC, Idea Innovation. So they are all asking for proposals. How do you think idea incubations can be enhanced? So proposals can be purpose-based or it can be academic. But even in academic, that is very important, even in academic, if you're making it purposeful and objective, rather than only with academic, what happens is generally we have a feeling that even if the purpose is not met, there's no problem. And that is a big issue which will come up even at the time of your public webinar. People will come and say, what is new that you found out? What is that you added to the existing knowledge? How is your finding resolving the problem that you identified initially? So if that is not met also, it's okay. But in a funding agency proposal, they will not give you funds unless they have achieved the purpose for which that project is to be done. So idea, concept, having a firm idea, having an idea that will carry through and address a given issue, that idea concept is common for all. So that's what we need to have in a good proposal. It should have a beneficiary, it should have a benefit, it should have an idea that will work in a context, or the idea which you feel will work in a context and resolve something as it is applied. So what do you do when you write a good proposal? Already many of you have submitted your proposals, but what should be there? You must understand theoretical concepts. That's what I said earlier. Definitions. It must be well internalized. Good internalization. What do you mean by internalization? It's reproduction need not be internalization. I know capital structure theory. I know relevance. I know hypothesis. But when I internalize that, I have with me a sense of being affected by its content. Is it right? Is it wrong? How does it work? Where does it work? When does it work? That is internalization. And you relate to one is you have internalized this, then you relate to realities in the environment. You look out for real issues. That is, in fact, the model which is followed in all great institutions, not just for your project or for PhD. Any small theory that they learn, they look outside and see how it is done. Even when you prepare a balance sheet or a profit and loss account for a company from your books, immediately on completion, you have to look at how a balance sheet or a profit and loss account is prepared by a firm in the industry in reality and try to understand what are the differences. Is it prepared in horizontal form, vertical form? How does it support analysis, interpretation? How does it give full disclosure? See, this is the reality. And the concept of accounting talks about it in terms of its basics. You say we talk about liquidity ratio, current ratio, asset test ratio, so on. It's computation. But then what does it mean when companies have different ratios? We look outside to reality. This is what we call book to field approach. When you talk about different theories of motivation, I look at what was the theory or what was the model followed by Wipro, one organization or another organization. When I'm saying motivating people to action, or when I'm saying promoting product sales, I look at what are the strategies which are adopted by XYZ firms or XYZ vendors, and how do they actually promote. So what are we actually doing over there? We are blending concepts to reality. And that blending concepts to reality is what makes the proposal strong. I know the theory, I know the problem, and I'm saying that this problem I'm trying to relate with this theory and find out why this problem is existing. So let an idea go for a good, let an idea evolve, which is going for a good research evolution stage. You are going for a good research evolution. You plan to write and work on it. So it has to have some kind of a, here there is a small mistake in terms of a good double D at the end. Sorry for that. So then you plan and write on it. So it's not just straight away writing. It's not just some headings that you put together. You need a title, you need a statement of the problem, you need objectives. So maybe these 3 or 4 heads, the problem, the research questions, the title, and your work plan goes with a plan to write and work on it. So it's planning, then writing, then working on it. That is what makes it a good proposal. So the thought process, think of great ideas that can transform. As I said, when you say transform, I'm not saying transform all industries and all the entire nation. It can be transformation in one small unit. It can be transformation in a small process. It can be perhaps a reduction of wastage in a small sector. It can be perhaps adding value to a product which is being sold somewhere. It can be finding out a new channel of distribution. It can be reducing the cost in the distribution system. So you're talking about the transformation. You can innovate a better way of doing it. Currently, it is done like this. But if you follow this theoretical system and you can bring this, then you are giving a new innovative form. You're creating a new model. You're resolving something. Somewhere somebody was facing, some unit or some industry or some enterprise was facing something and you're trying to resolve or mitigate it. Or what are we trying to do? We are promoting at least fine understanding. At all, you're not able to solve, at least you're saying, I'm not able to fully suggest a way, but I know that this is happening because of this. And unless you address that, you cannot resolve it. So you can now learn to convert the same into a research proposal. So when you do these thoughts, your problem, that you have identified and the process that you're going to follow in order to work on that problem will get converted into a proposal. It's as simple as that. But if we go just by, okay, somebody said something is good, some title is good, you just run into it. That should not actually happen. Now, the purpose of the research, earlier we were talking about the purpose of the proposal. You're trying to convince the DC or convince somebody else that I have identified something which is a genuine problem and I have identified how I'm going to work with that problem and perhaps trace out my path in terms of finding out something new. Here you're telling what you need to work on an issue, what the purpose of your research is to work on an issue identified. So you're not trying to convince somebody, you're trying to convince yourself that you need to work on that issue which has been identified, whatever it is. So it addresses a given problem and shed light on its resolution or mitigation. Throughout, if you look at this presentation, you will see these two words are very key leads to the entire presentation. What is exactly the problem that you have identified and how do you plan to work in terms of its resolution, mitigation, or shedding light on that. So just this is what actually stands out as your purpose of your research. Now you write this out as a statement. Generally, when you write out, suppose I say that, okay, some industry or some sector in one particular district or in one particular place has got problems. So I have not identified any specific problem. I'm just saying that perhaps they could have a large number of problems and issues. So say I have to find out whether there are HR issues or production issues or cost issues, labor issue, managerial issues, promotional issues. So you're not clear which are these. Maybe in all these points, they have some issue, but what is the clear priority with which you are saying that these issues actually emerge? So that issue that you're talking about is identified in a given context. I'm very clear about that. Something that needs to be resolved. Something that is affecting the growth and development. So I'm putting it in the form of a statement, a description. So it need not be very large. Perhaps in 4 or 5 sentences, I should be able to sum up. And when you're defending your proposal, normally people ask, just give me in 1 sentence. What is the problem? What is the issue that you're trying to bring out? So don't say that that could be there, this could be there, this will be there. With concrete factual base, you talk about what you have actually identified. And that stands out as a clear statement of your problem. Then you give a title which can even be tentative. You're not saying that, okay, on your research or registration order, maybe subsequently it can turn out to be your title. But then when you're putting that title, it should be very simple. It should focus. It should be simple, focused reflection of the problem or key issues to be studied. It should be simple with clarity on each word. Each word is important. We see a large number of cases where after 1 year, 2 years, the scholars come and say that I want to change. Because you put something in a title, every word is purposeful. If you say performance, then the question comes, how are you going to study performance? If you say evaluation, how are you going to evaluate? If you say studying impact of what on what? If you say opportunities and challenges, how will you identify opportunity? How will you identify challenges? If you say problem, how will you prioritize problems? How will you measure problems? So every word that you're putting in there must have a meaning. Unnecessary words can be avoided. And then in tune with that, you must have your objective. Because you put something as your title and then subsequently you say something in the objective which has got nothing to do with the title. So it has to have a relatedness and it should be simple with clarity on each word that you have actually used. So you have purposefully used each word and there must not be unnecessary usages to make it unnecessarily complex. Now you talk about the objective, what your study is attempting to or what your study attempts to accomplish. What are you trying to achieve? So there's nothing regarding the number. To be 1, 2, 3 or something. But try to put it in this form, primary and secondary. Even if it is one, there's no problem. My primary objective is this. And that is based on, as I said earlier, what you have put as your problem and what you have given as your time. So I am very clear on how I would like to get these things happen in a given context. So I make myself very clear. I make it very clear and focused on the problem identified. Maybe one or two. It can be one, it can be two, but don't make it too large. And it is not the numbers which are important. Then subsequently, you can have secondary objectives. Say, for instance, I'm saying that there are 2-3 key aspects which are acting as problems. And I put it into production, marketing, things like that as a secondary part, based on how it is existing in a given context. So I make a clear, make a clear and focused. It is to be made clear and focused on the problems which have been actually identified. Now move on with the process. This is the remaining part of your proposal. What are your tentative ideas on the sources of data? Now, when you look at that, keep in mind that there are lots of data which is already available. So you have to keep that those things in mind. Like normally people are ignoring what is existing when they are saying that they're going to take something new, and you will always be encountered with the question on why do you want to take this when this data relating to this is already available. So there are lots of data which are available on a real-time basis. So you can look at that. You can also talk about how your sample is going to be taken, how your collection methods and analysis. I'm not going into those details now because this is the second part of your orientation program, which will happen tomorrow. So you move on with this process in this form. This is also covered in terms of how you are going to go about on these processes, which are going to be key issues. So essentially, if you look at what we have covered, we have just touched upon a very simple format of having something which is really researchable, worth being studied with you. So you're giving birth to an idea which you believe is talking about something which needs to be studied in terms of its current relevance and in terms of its current context, based on a firm understanding of the backing which it has. So that identification is the key. So you are going to talk about in this first part, you will be very clearly talking about this is how I'm going to put my study in terms of its title. This is what I've identified as an issue. This is why I'm saying that it is an issue. And this is my primary objective, or if there is two, these are my two objectives. These are the theoretical facts which go into that. And this is how I plan to go about. And all these things are your initial ideas. As I go ahead, maybe at some point of time, I might have a feeling that these facts need to be refined. These facts need to be corrected. These facts require certain modifications, which can definitely be done. So that's all about the defending and preparing the proposal. So it's not just something that you borrow some title from somebody, or you borrow something and say that, okay, I'm going to do all this. It is something where you have to very seriously apply your mind in terms of the context, in terms of the theories, in terms of the packing that is existing to that. So thank you so much for this patient listening. And I hope you have some basic idea on how to go about this. As I said at the beginning, you have already prepared and uploaded in the portal the proposal, and maybe now you have a feeling that it requires some kind of a change. There is absolutely no problem, because it's only after 22nd and 23rd that we finally fix up on that. So you can, at the time of defending the proposal, talk about the probable change with the reason why you want to actually talk about this, and then you can go ahead with that. And even after that, when you are going to defend your proposal, you will be sitting before, or you will be talking to a group of experts, maybe 3 or 4 of them, who will be giving their own suggestions on how to perhaps go about this in a better way. So you can take that, and with their suggestions and your ideas together, we can see how this proposal can be strengthened further. So thank you so much. Now, anything anybody wants to ask or share or add, you can do that now.
Sir, one question. Hello?
Somebody is asking something, it's not audible.
Audible? Hello?
Am I audible? You can hear me?
Yes, sir, we
Yes,
can
sir.
hear you.
Ma'am,
Yes,
ma'am,
sir,
you're
we can
also
hear.
audible.
Hello?
Yeah, ma'am, please ask.
Am I audible?
Sir.
You can hear me?
Simon, sir, you're audible.
Type chat. Simon, sir, you are audible.
Sir,
Yeah.
to research for impacts more than 2 domains. Like, is it fine, or do we confine it to one of the domains?
I didn't get your question. Sound is breaking. Could you repeat the question once again?
If your research problem is impacting more than one domain,
Yeah.
so is it fine, or do we confine it to?
Absolutely no problem. It can be, but the question, for example, something which is an HR issue can have an issue in marketing, or I can have an issue in finance. When I'm talking about domain, what I was trying to talk about is you cannot venture into a domain into which your theoretical fitting or your theoretical understanding is not very firm. So, for example, I want to do certain aspects marketing of tourism products. Let me just give an example. So here there is tourism and there is marketing, and I have a specialization in marketing, but I do not know anything in tourism. That's what I gave as an example. So suddenly I find that I'm working on certain things which are valid in terms of the marketing proposition, but it might not gel with what is theoretically construed as part of tourism in terms of the theories there. So there is nothing wrong in going into multiple domains or disciplines with a firm understanding how it works. Say for another example, number of cases we have had similar cases in the past. Somebody wants to study stress in the IT industry. They relate it to HR, which is absolutely okay. And your understanding in terms of maybe turnover, in terms of performance appraisal in the IT sector, in terms of productivity of labor in the IT sector, in terms of mentoring and things like that in the IT sector is firm. But then when you try to relate this with stress, there is something called burnout, there is something called threshold, and you try to measure this, or you try to understand this, or you try to quantifiably or at least qualitatively scale this up without understanding what is burnout. And the reason for that is that you have a basic understanding in HR, but you do not have the same basic understanding in the levels of stress in terms of burnout and threshold and things like that. I think I've made myself clear. So you need to, when you look into the disciplines or the domains into which you are actually entering, you need to also understand the basics of the same. I mean, without that, you cannot do it. That's what I was trying to put across.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anything else?
Sir, myself Bushra. Sir, you said about the objective categorization. You said we have to classify it as primary and secondary. Does it have any connection with the source of collection? Whether we have to classify on the basis of source?
Yeah. Okay. I didn't say that it is mandatory. I'm not talking about the mandatory part of it, but then it is better to say that, because normally you look at many proposals, people will say that they want to study something, they have something as a problem. Then what they put as objective, perhaps one of the objectives has got nothing to do with the problem. Or maybe the fourth one has got nothing to do, no connect with the other thing. So it is basically we have one purpose behind the research, or one primary purpose behind the research, or at most two primary issues for the research. And anything else that you are trying to attempt would be a substantiating or further strengthening to what is the primary factor that you want. That's what I said. I just want to know. I said I just want to know what are the key HR issues which is creating attrition. Then I'm trying to put this as, is it performance? Is it developmental issues? Is it mentoring issues? So the developmental issues, mentoring issues, the promotional issues, the monetary issues are all secondary, because they're all leading to the factors that are causing attrition. So what is your basic thing should be very clear, and what are how these other factors will lead to it, you can establish in that form. Theoretically, there's nothing wrong in saying that I'm not going to split this into two, I'm just putting 3 and 4 together. So I'm trying to help you in seeing that you are more focused in terms of what you basically want to achieve or accomplish from your work, and how the other factors can act as a lead or a connect to that basic purpose.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have a question.
Sure.
My name is Mohammed Fahim Karimi. Sir, is it feasible for researchers to do research on a topic which is not currently exists, like we say cryptocurrency in retail stores? We know that this cryptocurrency is not using in retail stores. Is it feasible or relevant to researchers do research in this topic or no?
There are a lot of things in this form which perhaps might not be existing in a form in which you would like to report its status. But then it is not that you cannot do a study on it, but then you have to look at certain aspects. One is, where do you get data? From where are you going to get data? Because you can only look at the future prospects of future potential of future implications, because it's not that much in currency or that much in practice. So you cannot directly look at that. So if you want to look at future potential, you can say that based on policy changes, based on global developments, we are looking at future potential. But you cannot make a past analysis of what is happening with users, what is happening with institutions. You might not get data. So you should be very careful of how you caption it. Because I'll just give one example again, since you raised this question. Around 8 years back, we had a very big issue where somebody wanted to study human resource accounting among public sector enterprises. And they said that we're going to take this many enterprises and this many organizations, and we're going to look at the models there. But when they started off with those organizations, they understood that these organizations actually do not have a practice yet. I'm talking about that point of time. So you have to keep in mind these factors. Who are going to be your respondents? Which are going to be the institutions from which you're going to get data? What type of data you're going to get? These must be kept in mind. So in topics like this, which you have now mentioned, perhaps you can look at future implications and what the respondents think that the future will be, and how, if the future moves in that line, they will respond based on certain things which can happen only on a futuristic basis. I hope I've given you some input on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else wanted to raise something?
Sir, you
Yeah.
have already mentioned book to feed approach, right?
Yeah.
So is there any relevance in secondary data?
Definitely. Definitely. In fact, secondary data is turning out to be, even if it is not secondary data, it is something like what we call real-time data. It is available in a large number of databases today, some of which are paid databases and some of which are real. Say, for example, you want to do a study on financial inclusion, and you are trying to look at what is happening in one district in India, or one district in Kerala, or one district in South India. Now remember, there is a secondary database which talks about how this is moving across all districts in the entire country. So an analysis of that will tell you which are the states which are good, which are the states which are bad, which are the districts which are good. So some preliminary understanding it will give you. So with that, without looking at that, if you suddenly jump into one district and start doing certain things, perhaps that might give you misleading understandings on the context. So there is a lot of same with exports, same with the tourism example that I was talking about. Tourist inflows, spot-wise tourist inflows, revenue from tourism, foreign exchange reserves, uh, the export potential of different products, different sectors, wholesale price indices, indices of industrial production. So there are lots and lots of databases which have been created by SEBI, which have been created by RBI, which have been created by IRDA, which have been created by different policy regulators and other bodies. So they are showing data on a wider context. So there, it will give you trends and it will give you indicators. So that basic understanding, perhaps you might require some more of your data in order to contextualize. Say, suppose I'm studying micro, small enterprises. There are lots of data pertaining to how they get the lending pattern, usage pattern, and all pertaining to that. So perhaps I want to do it in maybe another identified 5 or 10 or 20 enterprises in one particular sector. After getting this trend, I would try to see that my research issue comes from a larger paradigm. And for understanding that larger paradigm, you need to have a firm understanding of the secondary data which is already available. And that data available today is on a real-time basis available. It's updated even on a daily basis. So those things which you already have, without understanding that, if you say something, there will be a problem. Why did you actually do this? Because this is already available in other places. Similarly, in terms of the capital market, finance is one area where tons and tons of data are available on a secondary basis. Lots of analysis can be done in terms of the data used from terminals which come up in a big way. So price movements, sectoral movements, mid cap, large cap, indices versus scripts, so on and so forth, derivatives, futures, options, commodity markets, tons and tons of data. From that, if you want certain specific things and you want to go to get certain things supplemented and added on, perhaps you can do that with it. But then keeping the other side totally closed, you can't come to a certain conclusion based on only what you are picking up.
Oh, okay, sir. So it's okay with working on secondary data itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
But then, as I said, in certain cases, you cannot work on secondary data.
Yeah.
Where, say, for
Okay.
example, suppose I want to study a person's perception or a person's level of satisfaction. That is an HR issue, where I cannot say that there is secondary data available on satisfaction. So there are some issues on which only primary will be sufficient. But there are many issues in which secondary will suffice, and many cases secondary will supplement, and secondary will add on to a larger scenario.
Okay, sir. I do understand. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Participants, if you have any doubts, please ask. So I hope everything is clear. So thank you, sir, for such a fruitful session. Now I invite Mrs. Aisha Ladida, Research Scholar, Department of Commerce, University of Kerala, to propose the vote of thanks.
Respected Head of the Department and Doctoral Committee Chairman, Professor Simon Sir, Research Forum Secretary Reshma, Program Coordinator Reni, all other scholars and research aspirants. A very good evening to all. On behalf of Research Forum and Department of Commerce, Kerala University, I am glad to be standing here to express my vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our resource person, Professor Simon Sir, for delivering an informative session. Thank you, sir. Then I am also very much thankful to all gathered here for participating this orientation program. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mrs. Aisha Ladida. So we have reached at the end of our first session. Tomorrow we will meet at sharp 6:30 p.m. for the second session of the program, which will be handled by Professor Vasudha Gopal, Head Institute of Management in Kerala, University of Kerala. The link for tomorrow's session will be shared at 4 p.m. in our WhatsApp group. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you so much. Wish you all the very best. Good night.